Detail, post colors. Yeah. We know they're there. We can hear them.
Okay.
Please remain standing for the singing of the national anthem by J.W. Cortez.
Detail and salute.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight over ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? Thank you.
Please remain standing while we retire the
to go? All right. That was awesome. Great job, guys in the back. Yeah. Okay.
I was just told. So it's an honor, first of all, to have everyone here, but to have Gary here and Brian Kilmeade. I want to introduce Brian from Fox 5 and Gary Sinise, who you all came to see, and read the book. The book is really fantastic, and thank you.
Thank you, Kathy, for everything you do. Friends of Firefighters, an unbelievable organization. Do we agree on that? Yeah, you guys are here. You guys have a lot of different choices to be here tonight. Shows you want to give back like Gary does every single day of his life. And I think we're going to give a chance for you guys to ask some questions. So don't be shy. I haven't met a shy person in this room yet. And this is a look at Gary's book. You're getting a preview. It doesn't release until Tuesday, but because you're here, you're going to get a sense of what's happening. We also have questions from around the world. So let's get started. Gary Sinise, everybody. So Gary's going to be signing books for all of you, but Gary, first things first. One of the cool things about being asked to do this, it gave me an excuse to get the book a month ahead of time. And although some of the words were hard to deal with, I had to ask for some help. I was able to get through it. It is an unbelievable book, a great story. If you are someone who bleeds red, white, and blue, also somebody who has a dream and wants to go after it and doesn't want to wait for it to happen, this is an example of somebody who made it happen. And Gary, first off, you're going to get this a lot, but great job on the book.
Thank you.
Did you enjoy thinking about yourself and writing about yourself?
I always enjoy thinking about myself. Yeah, writing about myself. No, it's the first time I've done it. It's my first book, so it was a challenge, obviously, to search the memory bank and pull out things that happened in the past. It is a memoir. I didn't know what the book was going to be in the beginning when I first started doing it. But we sort of laid out some chapters, and then I started to sort of look back. I didn't know what the title was going to be when I started with the book, but as I started to get into it, there was this recurring theme of gratitude and appreciation and remembrance and service and all of this. And I am a grateful American. There's no question about it. I love this country. I've been blessed to live here. I've been blessed to meet the incredible people I've met over the years in this life journey, and I wanted to write about some of those people in the book and how they've affected me over the years.
I love the way you started it, and I'm not going to give the whole book away, and Gary will stop me if I start doing that, but you start by you being honored by Vietnam veterans because of a role you played in this thing called Forrest Gump. You were Major Dan, all right? Lieutenant Dan, excuse me. Lieutenant Dan. But why?
Did you hear what he said? He just said I was Major Dan.
Yeah.
So I've been elevated to Major Dan.
Right. So you play this role, and the movie's a runaway hit, but it was more than that. What did you find out that your portrayal meant to so many who served?
Well, I talk about the family members that I have who served in Vietnam and the various veterans on both my side of the family and my wife's side of the family. But because of the Vietnam veterans in my family, I got involved with Vietnam veterans groups back in the late 70s and early 80s in the Chicago area. I talk about some of that in the book and how that basically prepared me in some ways for what would come in the 90s, which was the opportunity to play a Vietnam veteran. He was a wounded veteran, obviously, and that started me working with our wounded. It actually began an association with the DAV, Disabled American Veterans Organization. And that's how the book, that's what Brian's talking about. That's kind of how the book starts off because they contacted me about a month after the movie opened and invited me to their national convention. And I attended that, and it was a powerful moment in my life to be in a room of 2,500 to 3,000 injured veterans going back to World War II, all the way up until that time through the Gulf War, was very eye-opening. It was powerful, and they wanted to honor me for playing a wounded veteran in Forrest Gump. And I never forgot that. I never forgot that moment. That's why it's an important moment in the book. It started me on a kind of a journey to try to help our wounded veterans, which I've spent a lot of time trying to do. And it was a galvanizing moment for me, because not only was the movie popular and kind of career-changing for me as an actor, but it also was life-changing in so many other ways. I never could have imagined. You know, Forrest Gump is 25 years old this year. It came out in 1994. 25. We happen to have the producer of Forrest Gump right back here. Wendy, raise your hand now. I'm going to embarrass you. So the movie's 25 years old, and so is our relationship 25 years old. Yeah. Huh? That's right. How about that?
But also, do you think it's too the psychological problems you come home from war with, the suicide tendencies that your character had, and how they worked their way through it? And do you think that was something that brought to mainstream with people who fought in war kept to themselves?
Yeah, it's a natural thing. Post-traumatic stress is natural, you know. We in the community that I'm in, you know, you've got a label of post-traumatic stress disorder. It's had that label for a long time. We've tried to get rid of the disorder aspect of it, because going through a trauma like that it's a natural reaction that you have as a person. If you go through a battle, or if you go through, as our firefighters know, some catastrophic and very dangerous fire where bad things happen, that's stressful. And so it's a natural reaction to have that. Lieutenant Dan obviously goes through a lot of post-traumatic stress because of what he goes through. He not only is blown up and injured and loses his legs, but he's also carrying a terrible guilt that he walked his entire platoon into an ambush that got many of his men wounded or killed, and he carries that with him. And you know, war can really play on your mind, and it can be it can hurt and last a long time. All these traumatic things. So I do spend a lot of time trying to do what I can to help our families in military service who have gone through a lot of trauma. And certainly I've met extraordinary people over the years who have done that. And you know, I learned a lot from the veterans, my own family, and from playing a veteran.
Also, I think it's important because people are watching from around the world, judging by the questions here, but Friends of Firefighters. How does Gary Sinise relate to firefighters? Why was it important for you to pre-launch your book in this old firehouse?
Well, I had a very dear friend who passed away this past year that I met in 2003 on my first tour to Iraq. And I sat down on a C-130. We were going up from Kuwait to Baghdad, and I sat down next to a gentleman. And he didn't know who I was. I didn't know who he was. But, you know, I had a little hat on, a USO hat and glasses. And he said, "Who are you?" And I said, my name's Gary. And he said, "Well, my name's John." And he had a button on his shirt, and it had a picture of a firefighter and a police officer on it. I asked him what the button was, and he said, "Those are my boys." And he said they were both lost on September 11th at the World Trade Center, and that was John Vigiano. And John and I, and then he reached into his bag, and he took the USO hat off my head and put an FDNY hat on my head. And so, You see pictures of me in the beginning, I'm wearing USO, and for the whole rest of the trip I have an FDNY hat on, and that's because John gave me that hat. And he said, have you ever been to a firehouse in New York? And I said, no. And he said, when we get back, would you like to come? And he invited me to Ladder 132 in Brooklyn, and that's where his son John was stationed. They lost 6 firefighters there that day, and he invited me there, and I went there. My trip to Iraq was in June. I went in October to Ladder 132. And the reason we had chicken parmesan tonight was because that's what we had at Ladder 132 16 years ago. And John introduced me to the FDNY. And some very, very dear friends, some of them are here tonight, who have remained friends for 16 years. And they told me about the vision, the dream to build a Brooklyn Wall of Remembrance out on Coney Island, and that they needed some extra money to do that. So I offered to raise money by doing a concert. We raised the money and we built the Brooklyn Wall. And I count the FDNY as, I'll get all choked up now, but very, very special friends here. Friends of Firefighters does amazing things to support the FDNY, and it's been a blessing to try to help out. That's all I can say.
And also add this, friends of this place need some help too from around the country. People watching, friends of firefighters, just go to the website and see if you can donate, because they're supported. That's how they're supported.
That's right.
Which I know you're very familiar with. But this is Grateful American, but I'm going to just go back to when you were a kid, if I can, and talk about how Gary Sinise, before everyone got to know this, this internationally acclaimed actor, what type of kid you were, especially if you're a parent getting frustrated with your son or daughter that they might be not achieving a lot. Gary, as a kid in high school, how would you describe yourself? You wrote about it. People are going to read about it.
Lost. We were moving around a lot. I don't think I ever learned the fundamentals academically. I write about this in the book. I was kind of academically challenged, and it took a lot. I was just very challenged as a student. I had a lot of trouble in school. I got into a lot of trouble in school, but I also developed this sort of do-it-yourself sort of attitude. My dad worked a lot. He was a film editor. He learned the film business in the Navy, and he ended up starting his own film company in Chicago. But then, because of that, his own business, he was always gone. He was just gone a lot, working from 7 in the morning to midnight. And so I figured out a lot of stuff on my own, and some of that was not so healthy, and so I struggled, and I played in rock bands, and I did all these kinds of things through school, and then I stumbled into acting, and when I was a sophomore in high school, I the drama teacher walked down the hall and she told me to come and audition for a play. And it was West Side Story, and she thought I looked like a gang member, so she asked me to come and audition for the play, and I thought, you know. But then after school, when the audition was, I decided to go by and see what was going on, and I saw all the pretty girls walking into the audition, and I followed them in, and they gave me a script and said, read the script, get up there, and I stumbled around and did it, and I was just making jokes, and everybody was laughing. I got cast in the play, and it turned my whole life into a whole different thing. People often ask me, what's the greatest thing that you've done, the greatest moment in your acting career? And there's certainly been wonderful things like Forrest Gump and different things I've done on stage and film and television and all this. But I always point to that first play. The first time that I discovered this thing that I ended up doing for my life. and how important that was. Because, you know, how many of us find the thing that we want to do in high school? I think it's kind of rare when you find something at an early age and you end up doing it for your life.
And the cast liked you, and they became your friends, right?
Yeah, you know, like I said, I was I was bouncing around. I was really having trouble in school, and all of a sudden I found this community of kids that thought I was funny and thought I was good, and they kind of embraced me, and it really changed my life. I write about it in the book, in detail in the book, because it was such an important moment in the book, and very moving for me to think about those early days.
Right, and you got to sign some books. I just got a message. Start signing. Okay?
Sign books.
Yeah. So if you go to premiercollectibles.com/Gary Sinise, and I guess as the host, I'm obligated to pick up that cap. There you go. You can get a signed book from Gary, which it comes out on Tuesday. But if you get the proper momentum for a book like this that can teach so many people so many things, that immediately goes on the best-selling list, which means that every bookstore puts it forward, which means it perpetuates itself. So let's get off to a great start and sign it right away.
Right.
So I also think it's heartening, too, because there's a lot of parents watching right now. There's a lot of kids watching right now, and they go, isn't that guy from CSI? Isn't that guy from Forrest Gump? Isn't that guy from
West Side Story?
West Side Story. Isn't that the thug that we see? And just know, like, it's a journey. It's not easy. What I found the coolest thing is because I know a lot of people involved in the arts that are really in touch with their emotion, and they're unbelievably talented. But to be successful, you have to have a business attitude. If you wait home and wait for the phone to ring or for your agent to do the work, a lot of times you end up frustrated. Gary, you must know so many people that don't get the big break because they don't get the big call, especially in a business that's so overcrowded. So what Gary does is, while his friends go off to college, he co-founds Steppenwolf, which is his own theater company. So rather than wait for the call, he finds a basement, makes a theater, he makes scenes, he gets scripts, he casts his friends, his talented friends that want to do this, and he's ripping tickets and doing everything necessary in order to keep acting, I imagine keep getting better, and taking your career in your own hands. So even if you're a talented actor, I have no ability to act, but to me, reps makes you better, right? Oh. And instead of waiting for to be cast in a play, you make your own plays, you have your own cast, and then you get your own audience. You had a time to be bad. Right? In order to be great.
Yeah, we had plenty of time to be bad. Yeah.
I just say, and you know, they talk about that too, and you know, about what it takes, how many reps and how many hours it takes to be successful. And they talk about the Beatles, who they played in Germany all those years and had to play for hours, and they had developed all their music. So by the time they were ready to be stars, they had already earned their time in the small venues. By the time you were ready for the spotlight to shine, you had put in your hours. You deserved the success. It wasn't luck.
We had, how many of you know Steppenwolf Theater? Have you heard of Steppenwolf Theater? Well, and we brought our first play here in 1982, and that's when we went from kind of a local theater in Chicago where not a lot of people knew of us outside of Chicago.
Is it around when SNL started too?
Broader. Saturday Night Live started the year before we did. Yeah. So we brought our first play here in 1982. We actually started in 1974, and we found this little basement of a closed-down Catholic school in Highland Park, Illinois, where I went to high school. And I had started this theater with kids that were 17, 18 years old, and we needed a space, so we went to the Chamber of Commerce in town and said, do you know any place where we could do plays? And they told us about this Catholic school that had closed down, and there was a basement there, and we built an 88-seat theater in the basement, and we had this company of 9 of us: John Malkovich, Laurie Metcalf, Joan Allen, Terry Kinney, Jeff Perry. There were a lot of well-known people, good folks. My beautiful wife Moira She wasn't my wife then, but she became my wife after that. She was an early member of the company, and we spent a solid 4 or 5 years inside this basement just doing our plays, and sometimes there would be nobody in the audience. You know?
Yeah.
And I remember I'd tell a story, you know, when nobody showed up, then we'd entertain ourselves, and we'd just get the beer out, and we'd start having a party and have fun in there. But it galvanized us. You know, we had this thing that we developed in this basement, and then when we moved into the city of Chicago, 2 years later, we did a play called True West by Sam Shepard. I think it's actually back on Broadway now or something, with Ethan Hawke, a buddy of mine. And John Malkovich and I did this play, and we moved it to New York, off Broadway, to the Cherry Lane Theater, and it was a big hit. And all of a sudden, we were getting all this attention. Malkovich started doing movies. He went off, started his moving career. I went back to Chicago and took over as our artistic director. And the theater grew and grew and grew. We were eventually able to build our own building, which we have now. We own about 3 or 4 buildings in the city of Chicago, and we're about to build another one. So the theater is 45 years old now. It's been around a long time, but the fundamentals of all of our acting, Malkovich, me, all those early members, that's where we learned to kind of do this thing that we did, where we developed our skills. And it was really just working together. I didn't go to college. I just worked with this group of actors, and that's where we learned our stuff, just by banging heads.
Wow, I have some questions. We'll take some questions here, but here's some questions that are coming in. This is from Richard in Illinois. Are you able to get some leisure time for yourself?
Richard, thank you for asking.
No one ever asked it. Because all your free time, you're raising money and contributing to your foundation.
You know what? I'm a grandfather now. So the leisure time I have is chasing this little 21-month-old little girl around, and that's really how I spend my time when I'm not doing something for the Gary Sinise Foundation or playing concerts or whatever. I'm staying home with the family. That's the way I like to spend my leisure time. Is just because I'm gone so much, and I have been for so many years. I really enjoy just being with the family and spending time with them.
And we should point out too, you did work with your dad, right? Didn't your dad help you editing some of your films?
My dad, actually, I made a movie of Mice and Men, and my dad was the editor on that film. I hired my dad, and he cut the movie. Yeah.
Well, good hire.
Yeah.
And the other thing, how do you handle being away? Since you must have been so sensitive to it, here you are, a parent with 3 kids, and you have to go shoot some movies, and you had to be away. How did you handle that?
Well, you know, if I look at the service history of the last 20 years, and then the years prior to that with the movie business and everything, I was gone away from my kids a lot. I was gone making movies, and then after September 11th, I hit the road and tried to help out our military and our veterans and our first responders, and just lent my time and spent a lot of time away from them. And I was sitting, my son works for my foundation now. I was sitting with him at one point. We were going kind of through the service history of the last, I don't know, 15 or 20 years. And there's a lot in it. And all the dates are in it. And I was looking at it, and I just said, holy cow, you know. I looked at him, and I was gone a lot when you were a kid, right? And he goes, yeah. He said, yeah. But you know what? After September 11th, you know, like so many of us, I was devastated by what happened to our country and to our fellow citizens, and we started deploying to Iraq and Afghanistan. Our folks started getting hurt. We started losing people. Children started to lose parents. And I just was brokenhearted. And service is a great healer. I talk about the service aspect of why this is called a journey from self to service, because I needed to do something, you know, like so many of us. I know people in this room who I've known for years who have devoted their lives to helping other people. And it just became something that they had to do.
Yep.
And that was the case for me. I just had to do something, and having veterans in my family and having worked with Vietnam veterans and all of that, employing my efforts towards supporting the men and women who were reacting to the terrible attacks of September 11th and going out to try to defend us and respond to those attacks. I just felt that's where I could put my energy. And so I dove in full on. And because of that, you know, I was gone a lot, but my family was very supportive and has been through this whole thing. And they get a lot of credit for, you know, what I've been able to do in my life.
Yeah, and I imagine they appreciate their sacrifice and your sacrifice. How much has the Gary Sinise Foundation raised?
How much money? You want me to tell you?
Yeah.
Well, it's well over $100 million. Now, so I would say this. That's the American people. That's our fellow citizens who have said, we trust you to do right by our generosity, whether it's $5 or $50 or $500 or $500,000. That we would do right by that. And it was always my goal when starting a foundation, having learned so much from so many other charitable organizations that I had lent my services to try to help them do more. It was always my intention to try to create something that the American people would trust, that they would see as a reliable way to give back to the men and women who serve our country and to our first responders and our families. And so that's a great validation that we're doing something right. And I go out and play these concerts all the time for our military and folks, and I always tell them that I am simply just carrying a message from people who care about them, who've decided to support the Gary Sinise Foundation so that we can send that message. And that I can go out there and we can build houses for our wounded, we can entertain our troops on military bases, we can take care of our Gold Star families and do all the different things that we're doing. It's because the American people trust us, you know. So that my greatest nightmare would be to lose that trust. So that's why I'm so tired.
Also, you helped it. Yeah. Here's one. What was your favorite thing about filming Apollo 13? Also, thank you, as this is from Miranda. She also thanks you for everything you do for veterans. It says you are a blessing. So what was your favorite thing about Apollo 13?
Oh, that was a great movie. How many people saw Apollo 13? So that was a great movie to work on. I mean, it's a great story, first of all. It's just a great American story, what people can do when they pull together in a time of crisis, and it was a happy ending and all of that. So we got to do some great things. We got to go to space camp in Huntsville, Alabama. We got to go to Houston, to Mission Control in Houston. We got to fly in on the KC-135, they call it the Vomit Comet. And it's a plane that'll drop you into 25 seconds of zero gravity, so you can float around inside the airplane while the airplane is diving toward the Earth. So what it does, it like a roller coaster. You know, we've all gone up to the top, right? And then it falls, and you feel yourself just like lifting up. Well, that's what the airplane does. And you're inside the airplane, and the airplane climbs like that, and then it dives for 25 seconds. And in the dive, the airplane is falling so fast, it's falling much faster than you can because it's so heavy, right? So everything inside the airplane just floats around. And that's how they train astronauts to prepare for zero gravity, and we got to do that. And there's some funny pictures in the book. We all had flight suits, me and Hanks and Kevin Bacon, the cast, and 2 pockets. You'll see in the book, there's each pocket had a little plastic bag in it. And so there's a great picture in the book of all of us sitting there with both our bags. And then there's a picture of one of the guys walking down the stairs with one bag missing. And who was that? So I got sick up there after doing these parabolas 42 times. We did 50 of them. I made it to 40. It was great. We were only supposed to do 40. Ron Howard said, let's go 10 more. And then I lost it at number 42. Yeah.
This one's from Mary Ellen. Do you ever catch up with Tom Hanks? She's in Georgia. What?
He's in Georgia?
No. Mary Ellen's in Georgia.
Oh.
He wants to know, do you ever catch up with Tom Hanks? Are you friendly with him?
Tom actually wrote something on the back of this book.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what does he say?
Well, let's see what he says. I'm not going to read
it. Gary Sinise, overrated actor. Please don't buy this book. I don't know. I guess it's a big name, but I wouldn't have put that. He writes as he lives, and as an artist and actor, he's always been with American authenticity, purpose, and conviction, and is inseparable from his nature. Tom Hanks. Clint Eastwood is also on here. Patricia Heaton. Not bad.
Good friends.
Would you ever do a documentary of this book?
Well, if you go to Gary Sinise Foundation website, GarySiniseFoundation.org, on the merchandise page, there are a couple of documentaries. Yeah. One of those documentaries is called For the Common Good, and it actually, when the Brooklyn Wall of Remembrance opened in 2008, after I did the concert to raise money to build the Brooklyn Wall, I got to be there with all my pals and make a speech at the dedication of the Brooklyn Wall. And in For the Common Good, that moment is actually captured on that in that documentary. There's also a story I tell about CSI New York. When I was on CSI New York, and for the 10th anniversary of September 11th, we did an episode, and I wanted to feature the Brooklyn Wall in this episode. It's called Indelible. It opened. It was the premiere of season 8, and that premiere actually was about 2 weeks after the actual 10th anniversary of September 11th. And I wanted to feature that wall, and so we wrote an episode that basically had my character, Mac Taylor, have something to do with building that wall. And my character, Mac Taylor, made a speech at the dedication of the wall. And so it was art imitating life in a way, very, very special. And I had so many of my pals that I'd met, 9/11 family members from the FDNY, standing with me in the scene behind me while I made this speech, and John Vigiano was right next to me when I made that speech. It's a beautiful, beautiful episode.
And by the way, this is Mrs. Vigiano, right?
This is Jan Vigiano right here.
That's the reason why you're in the fire.
That's right. That's why we're here. Yep. But so some of those there's a couple of documentaries on the website that actually show some of this stuff that I write about in the book.
Wow, fantastic. A couple other things I think is important to point out along the way. You were also a director, a very good director. In fact, who set you up for a meeting with Steven Spielberg And what did he recommend for your future? And what advice did you not take? Why did you not take the advice?
Well, yeah, I was able to get a meeting with Spielberg about some movie he was doing. I can't remember which one it was. But it was in the early 90s, and I had just made Of Mice and Men. I tell about this in the book a little bit. I just made Of Mice and Men into a film. John Malkovich and I were in that together. I produced it and directed the movie as well. And I went in to meet Spielberg and sat down with him, and he said, "What have you been doing?" And I said, "Well, I just made this movie Of Mice and Men." And he said, "Really?" I said, yeah, I directed it and was in it. And he said, "Can I see it?"
You're like, uh-oh.
I said, "Yeah, you can see it. I'm sure you can see it." He said, "Will you bring it over to my house and show it to me?" So I went over to Spielberg's house and sat with him in a screening room.
How old are you at this time?
Oh, I was, I don't know. This is probably 1992 or so. It was before Forrest Gump. And so me and Steven Spielberg and his wife, Kate, sat in his screening room and watched Of Mice and Men together. And I was pinching myself the whole time, and afterwards, Steven Spielberg and his... Was that me?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was pinching myself, and afterwards, I'm thinking, okay, this is my moment. You know, what do I ask Steven Spielberg? And as a director, on my first movie, which was called Miles from Home, I was really unsure about it. On my second movie, Of Mice and Men, I was much more sure about it. But still, as a director from theater who didn't grow up shooting stuff, I was always, you know, if a director doesn't know where to put the camera, you're in trouble, right? So I think, what am I going to ask him? And then I just said to him, "How do you know where to put the camera?"
Okay.
And what did he say to me? He said, "I just watch a lot of movies." And you know, that made total sense, because as an actor, I just watch a lot of actors, you know? And it made total sense. I've learned so much from watching other actors do their thing. And there was a group of actors back in the 70s that I was watching all the time. And it was Gene Hackman, it was Al Pacino, it was Robert De Niro, it was Dustin Hoffman, it was Robert Duvall, it was Jack Nicholson, just all these guys. John Cassavetes, all these guys influenced me as a young guy when I was just learning about acting. So it made perfect sense. As a director, of course, you just watch a lot of movies and see what the other directors are doing. And you learn so much from them.
And did he also recommend you become a director?
He told me, he said, "Don't stop directing."
And what'd you do?
And then I never directed again.
Thought that was important. Here is, this is from Acres. I don't know if that's a real name, from Springs, Florida. What do you say to people who think it's okay to burn or otherwise disrespect the U.S. flag?
Well, I would just say what I think, you know. I respect the flag. I stand for the flag. I put my hand over my heart for the flag. I listen to the anthem. It always moves me. I would hope that other Americans would be grateful enough for the people that have fought for that flag that they would do the same thing.
Gotcha. Quick yes or no. Quick yes or no. Can we convince you to run for office? That's from Anthony, Orlando, Florida.
Thank you, Anthony. No.
Michelle, what motivates you every morning?
Well, look, first thing for me, I try to be a good dad, good husband, good father, good granddad. Take care of my family and do the right thing by them. There's a lot of mistakes in this book that I made over the years. and we all go through that. I tried to, I believe in redemption. And I just want to try to be a better citizen, better father, better husband. So it motivates me to try to get out there and support my country and support my family, do the right thing, and try to make up for things that didn't go so right when I was a kid.
Gotcha. That's your motivation. And we're going to take some questions from the audience. I'm not going to answer that question. Were you ever scared during your visits to a combat zone?
Yeah, sure.
Where?
Or
just a lot of them? Or, I mean, you've been to so many at this point.
Yeah, you know, I mean, I'm usually surrounded by a lot of big guys with some heavy weaponry, so I feel pretty safe with them.
Also, should we also point out, too, that you also saw a need with the Iraqi kids when you were there, and you supplied some supplies for those kids?
Sure.
Yeah, what could you tell, like, you saw what those kids needed, you saw how they viewed the soldiers and what our men and women were doing over there, so you're helping them out, too, right?
On my second trip to Iraq in November of '03, that was a very busy year. I wasn't working at the time, so I went to Iraq in June of '03, then I went to Italy in July and Germany in August, and I was visiting troops in San Diego in September and Fort Stewart and Walter Reed, different places. I went back to Iraq again in November of '03, and on the second trip, I was staying in a place that Saddam Hussein used to. I think he would stay there. It was his main air base in Balad, Iraq, and we were using it. We call it Camp Anaconda there. And at that time, the runways were still blown up, and there was no running water or lights or toilets or anything like that in this building. I was sleeping on this floor in there, and I remember hearing this rattling, just rattling, and I didn't know what was going on. It sounded like the pipes were rattling or something. And I got up, and we had security guys out there, and I said, "What's going on?" They said, "Well, the mortars are coming in over there." And I said, "What?" And they said, "Yeah, mortars are coming in." And I said, "Well, what should we do?" They said, "They come in every night." and the guys didn't seem too nervous about it, so I went back and kind of slept with one eye open. And but I figured, you know, they would move us out of there if they were getting too close or they were concerned about it. But on that very same trip, in fact, the next day, we got on this convoy and we went out to a school that the troops wanted us to see, and this was November of '03, and they wanted us to see the school that they had rebuilt. So they took us out in a convoy, and we got out. I was with Wayne Newton, Chris Isaac, country singer Neil McCoy. I was with some Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders. It was a USO trip, and we walked into the school, and there were kids, and they just jumped all over the troops, and they were hugging them, and the kids were just happy that we were there. And I remember that very clearly because you weren't really hearing about that kind of thing at that time. It was a kind of a divided time. It was still early in the Iraq War, but you weren't really hearing about these civil affairs missions. And I noticed that the kids were all sitting, you know, you'd have 3 or 4 kids at one desk, like we are right here. There'd be 3 of us, and they'd have one pencil, and they'd be passing it around, and that's one pencil and 2 pieces of paper, and that's it. Nothing on the walls the way our schools have. There was nothing in there. So I thought, you know, I can't keep making trips over here, but maybe we could send something to the troops to give to the kids. And so we started collecting school supplies. and we would send them over to the battlefield, and the troops would take them out and give them to the kids. Well, I teamed up with Laura Hillenbrand, who wrote Seabiscuit and the book Unbroken. Laura had wanted to get some Arabic translations of her book sent over to Iraq. She knew somebody over there. They knew me. They connected us. And we started something called Operation Iraqi Children, and we started shipping school supplies in these kits, pens, paper, erasers, whatever, and we put these kits together. And I teamed up, after that, we teamed up with Mary Eisenhower, General Eisenhower's granddaughter, who runs a humanitarian organization that her grandfather started called People of People International. And they took our program under their wing and provided the 501c3, so now we could raise money, and people could send us their supplies, and we would repack them and ship them over there. We ended up, between 2004 and 2013, sending hundreds and hundreds of thousands of school supply kits over to the troops in not only Iraq, but Afghanistan, Djibouti, the Philippines, Haiti. Even after Hurricane Katrina, we sent them down to Maxwell Air Force Base, and they distributed them in Alabama to places that were affected there. So it was a great program that really made a difference, I think, for a while.
Wow, it's fantastic. So I'll repeat your questions for everyone, but again, we're at the Friends of Firefighters event here. Gary Sinise is signing his book that comes out Tuesday that you can order now, Grateful American. If you want it signed, go to premiercollectibles.com/Gary Sinise, and as he signs right here for you. Who has any questions? Oh, hi, how you doing? Anybody have any questions? This is not a shy group. There you go. Go ahead, what's your name?
Mike Hyde.
Mike, thank you.
Gary, this one, you've done some great movies. Do you like playing a bad guy better than a good guy? Because you're a great bad guy.
So the question is, would you rather play a bad guy or a good guy? What would you rather do?
Be employed. No, it's fun. I remember I did a movie here in 1996 with Mel Gibson called Ransom. And I remember reading it, and anyone see Ransom? Do you know what it's about?
You were an awful man.
Yeah, awful man, yeah. For those of you that haven't seen it, I won't, I know you're going to run home and watch it on Netflix. But we made it here, and I remember reading it, and Ron Howard had directed Apollo 13, and so we had worked together once, and he called me and asked me if I would consider being in the movie and playing this cop. And I read it, and I just didn't like the character. I didn't see myself doing it. I mean, I don't want to give it away, but he does some things that are less than ethical in the film, and so I turned the movie down. And then I started thinking, what have I done? Ron Howard just offered me a film, and I turned him down. Oh dear, I must be, who must I be now? And so I kind of regretted it, but I'd made my decision. And I was at a school where there was like a Halloween parade for my kids. They were in a parade. And I look over, and Brian Grazer, who's Ron's partner in producing films, he's standing right there watching his kids in the parade. I said, hey Brian, how you doing? He goes, good. I said, what's happening with the movie? He goes, why? And I said, well, I'm just wondering, did you cast that part? Well, Ron's about to offer it to somebody. Why? And I said, well, you know, is it still available? And he said, well, it might be. And then I went home, and 15 minutes after I got home, Ron Howard called me up and said, now, did I hear that you might still be interested in the film? And I said, well, yeah, if you think you might want me, I think I might be able to do something with that part. And so he cast me in the film. I got the part, and in the beginning, it was a little tricky to play the bad guy. It took me a little bit to get into it. Once I started, though, being evil was really fun. Because it was Mel Gibson, and I got to kind of torture Mel for 99% of the film. And then I get, Yeah.
Are you one of those actors that takes the part home, that you become that person during shooting? Like, do you knock off liquor stores? If you're, do you feel evil when you go home, or when you're done with the day, are you back to being a normal person?
I don't think so, but on the other hand, I think you can't help it, depending on what you're doing that day. If you spend your whole day emoting and crying and, stuff like that, you're going to be tired at night and you're going to feel emotionally spent. So acting can do that to you if you spend your whole day kind of putting out this fierce energy and stuff like that. You can take it home, and you got to sleep it off.
All right, we got about 8 minutes left. Yeah, the plaid shirt.
Yeah, Lieutenant Dan Band, what's your plans on how many concerts you're going to be playing? Are you going to play any place near New York?
All right, just to repeat the question, what's your name?
John.
John wants to know the Lieutenant Dan Band. Are you going to be playing around here in New York City?
These are all my buddies over here. So they got So the band. So for those of you that don't know, I have a band. It's called the Lieutenant Dan Band. I named it that after several trips to the war zones and different places where they wouldn't know what my real name was, and they would just recognize me as Lieutenant Dan and call me that all the time. So when I started taking the musicians on the trips, we needed a name. I just named it after the character. So we've played hundreds of concerts on military bases, at hospitals. The Gary Sinise Foundation has a program called our Invincible Spirit Festivals. We bring the band in, we bring food, we take them to the military hospitals, we bring the patients out, we provide them food, their families come out, the staff members who take care of the patients come outside, and we give them a day-long festival supported by the generosity of the American people who support the Gary Sinise Foundation. We have 2 or 3 of those on the books this year, plus probably another, what do we got, Robin, what do we got? 20, 28 concerts on the books. And so just so you know, I play for free. All these concerts are supported by the Gary Sinise Foundation. The band is a program of the Gary Sinise Foundation. So much like the USO, when you donate to the USO, you know the USO provides entertainment for our troops. You donate to the Gary Sinise Foundation. One of the things we do is boost morale, raise spirits, show support, pass a message of gratitude, honor, and rock and roll. And that's what the Gary Sinise Foundation is.
This question from North Carolina, from Dale. What did it mean for you to be chosen to narrate the Reagan Library audio tour?
Oh, that's about 10 years old now, probably. I was privileged to have Nancy Reagan herself ask me if I would do the virtual tour of the Reagan Library in Simi Valley, California. So I wasn't going to say no to that. So if you go to the Reagan Foundation website and you look for the virtual tour, you see the virtual tour guide, and it's me giving a tour of the library. The library it's beautiful. It's an incredible library. And one of the things that we did, my buddies here, about 5 or 6 years in a row, I've been involved with the Medal of Honor Foundation and the Medal of Honor Society for many years. And we started doing something called the Celebration of Freedom, the Congressional Medal of Honor Society Celebration of Freedom, and we would do it at the Reagan Library. And we would have 900 people under Air Force One, beautiful tables, celebrating the Medal of Honor Foundation. We would have 50 Medal of Honor recipients there. I've been blessed to befriend so many of these recipients. And at one of the events, I wanted to bring members of the FDNY out to the Reagan Library to participate in the ceremony. And so, raise your hand, guys, if you were there. John, Jan,
About 8.
Danny,
10.
Mike, they all came, and where's Buddy? Where is he?
He's sitting down here.
All right, there he is. So they came, and they brought a big piece of the World Trade Center that now hangs inside the Reagan Library in this place of honor at the Reagan Library. It's beautiful, and that was an incredible event.
Wow. Okay, and anybody over here have any questions? Yeah.
Harry, this is more of a thank you. I wish to thank you on behalf of the FDNY. And Shelton Waltrip is an honorary firefighter from Mother Home, who's battling a long time. He's 17 years old. I know you reached out to him. And I am in your debt, sir, for the kindness that you showed Shelton, who's a sweetheart of a young man and a true patriot like yourself.
So
thank you, Gary.
So
Did you send that to me?
I was part of the team that helped.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for helping.
So there's just for everyone at home.
So Shelton Waltrip is an honorary member.
Sheldon Waltrip's an honorary member of
Young boy.
FDNY.
And Gary was kind enough, he's on home hospice right now, Gary was kind enough to step up like he always does, like an FDNY member, and I want to say thank you, Gary.
And you stepped up and helped out. And who's in hospice now? You never know. Another question? Yeah.
So Gary, Glenn Schneider, New York Rescue Response Team. I'm amazed to be in the same room with you. I feel that all that you've done between your book, between the book, your movies, and all that you do with the Gary Sinise Foundation, Lieutenant Dan Band, absolutely amazing. How do you find time to do all that you do?
Well, you know, I tried to shape it over the years a little bit, and every year I say, well, this is the year I'm going to like cut back on some of the travel, which I've tried to do a little bit. There's a period where it was really nonstop, and as the foundation, the Gary Sinise Foundation has grown. We've been able to spread our outreach and our impact a lot farther because I have an incredible team of people that help me do a lot of cool things and that are carrying on these various programs that started from some personal involvement prior to the creation of the foundation. My CEO is right here. Robin, stand up, bud. This is So, Robin is a retired U.S. Air Force 4-star general. We met when he was a colonel about 15 or 16 years ago at Kunsan Air Base in Korea. And Robin wanted to continue to serve and continue to do more. So he's helping me do a little more every day by helping the leadership of my foundation continue these wonderful programs that we have. And doing a lot more. I still have a lot on the books, but there's a lot, of course, that I can't attend every home dedication of a home that we built for one of our wounded, or go to every Serving Heroes event or whatever. But everybody that does go to those things, they carry a message from me to make sure that people know that I'm with them and supporting them, and that has allowed me to take a little bit of a step back and just do a certain amount of things. I got 2 weeks on the road right now. I'm going to do 4 concerts at military bases during this crazy period of
you got book promotion, 2 weeks of book promotion, right?
2 weeks of promotion on the book, and we're going to play at Nellis Air Force Base, Luke Air Force Base, Naval Air Station Jacksonville, and Naval Air Station Pensacola while I'm on the road here.
Wow.
We're going to hit a lot of bases.
All right, do we have any more questions here? Yeah.
Before I just want to, Gary, Mr. Graff, Joe Graffinino, he's a Vietnam vet, Marine, and he lost his son, Joe, at the Deutsche Bank fire. You met his son in the firehouse briefly, believe it or not. Anyway.
So this is Joe, who's a Vietnam veteran for people at home, and you lost your son at the Deutsche
Bank fire.
the Deutsche Bank
I
fire.
wrote a book on it. I think John was able to give you a book. I don't know if you read it.
I have that book.
Called The Fix Is In.
Yeah.
Fixes it,
But go ahead with your questions.
You had me hooked as a fan in your movie Imposter with Madeline Stowe. I was convinced that whatever you were saying was gospel truth, and you were not an alien, and that...
Don't tell anybody. They're going to go home and watch it now.
That was it. That was a moment for me, and that's when I became a huge fan of yours.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. Thanks very much. And
Garrett-
thank you for serving our country.
Right. Sorry about your son. Gary, are you done acting? Are you looking for the right project? What are you thinking?
I don't think I'm done acting unless I've been retired by somebody else other than me.
All right. Are you looking? What are you looking for right now? Is there a certain part?
You know, I got to say though, CSI. There's a chapter in the book called Perfect Timing, and it talks about CSI New York being on that television series for 9 years, and the timing of that could not have been better because I was starting to just do a lot of service work and get involved in all kinds of military support and first responder support during this period from 2004 to 2013. And all of a sudden I had a public platform as somebody who's on television every night or every week, and that's a good thing for the cause.
It was a hit show.
Yeah, you're on for 9 years. You're doing well, and I also financially it was very, very beneficial. So all of a sudden I could do all kinds of things that I wanted to do because I had the resources and I had the platform and I could get involved with all kinds of things. And now I'm so involved with the service work and the rewards of seeing the smiling faces and the folks that we're able to impact with the work and all of that. That's so rewarding. And I've done a lot in acting. And, I feel like I've done that, but it's going to take something kind of special to pull me away from this mission. This mission has added such purpose to my life in a way that I can't explain it. You know?
And lastly, John Malkovich, does he scare you too? Is he a scary guy? Every character I find terrifying. Did he play it?
That's acting.
Okay, good. All right, so there's a couple of things. Go to Gary Sinise Foundation if you want to support a myriad of causes. And then number one, Friends of Firefighters too. They're going to need a lot of help. And
Can I say something about
things.
that?
Yep.
They do such great work here at Friends of Firefighters. I wanted to launch my book here with my FDNY pals, with my friend Nancy, who does so much for the FDNY. She has a tremendous team here of dedicated folks, and they struggle all the time to just keep the funds coming in to pay the bills. So your donations tonight, the tickets that you've purchased to come here will help Friends of Firefighters keep going, and I would encourage anybody out there to look at their website.
If you want a signed copy, premiercollectibles.com/Gary Sinise. Also, Gary's going to be on Fox and Friends in the morning. It's your favorite show, right? And then listen to the Brian Kilmeade radio show, which is now carried on WABC locally and now in 165 stations. So if you're not a bestseller by Tuesday at 5 p.m., I'd be stunned.
I want to thank Brian
thank
for
you
doing
very much.
such a great job.
Absolutely. It's really an I really enjoyed the book. I wanted to read it for this event, but once I opened it, I could not put it down. So I think you guys are going to love it. You're really going to love it, especially because you paid for it already. And you got to like it. Any other guys? Are we okay to lock out? Okay. All right, people in Facebook world, you have to go on with your lives now without us. See ya. Thank you so much.